You make this rather snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
Good morning, everybody. This is Get It Right Texoma and the Texoma Trio. That's you.
I'm Trey.
Okay, I'm Terry. And we got Mike as
right
always there with us. And this is, it's fun. I had fun last night. Went to the art walk.
Oh, I'm glad you told us what you did. I had fun last night and then just went away. It was like, who knows?
Well,
might have killed a hooker or something.
Yeah,
I don't know what you.
So we went to the art walk last night. After we sing.
Not we.
No, not
Terry.
we.
Terry
My wife and I. Yes.
Yeah. I'm his boyfriend, not his wife. So.
So don't tell Lucy. You
Yeah.
know. But anyway, we went and man, it was busy. Now I'd never been before, so I don't know what it was, but I heard it was really gonna. There was a lot of interest because of all the controversy and everything.
I was busy last night and I didn't have a chance to go, but I've gone to a bunch of them over the years, and they really are neat deals. So I'm really glad that it kicked off and it was successful. Yeah. And we're actually going to have Ish Duran on, who is now in charge of the art walk.
Right, his company or his organization.
His organization is, and we're going to have him on in 2 or 3 weeks, I believe.
Okay, great. Well, it was cool. We went and had I had the street tacos. I don't know who it was. They were, as you come out on Indiana, they were first one right up against the building on the left. I don't know.
Well, they're not going to be there today, so it really
no, they won't be there today. But it was really good. And then and they had the fruit drinks. They call it something fresca or whatever.
Agua fresca.
There we go.
Yeah.
And then we went over and had.
You can tell me you're not much Hispanic, are you?
No, far from it.
I gotta have them one of them tacos.
Yeah, there you go. So we
put guacamole on it.
Yeah, so we wandered around after that, and then we ended up at B's rolled ice cream.
Wow, I've had that before.
Yeah.
Not there. I had it in the Metroplex one time. Rolled ice cream is really good.
Well, this is a local. I was thinking about. Maybe we should have her on just to tell her story. But she's a young girl that started her own little business, and she's doing rolled ice cream.
Rolled ice cream is kind of like they lay it out like a crepe.
Right.
Like a crepe, or they say in French, a crepe.
A crepe.
Yeah, it's on a panel deal, and it's laid out and it gets super thin, and they just
roll it up.
And put it in a cup or a cone or whatever.
Yeah, just
interesting.
Yep. So anyway, it was good, and then we had boom, there you go. So anyway, this morning we have
Rachel
Wolff from
the Boys and Girls Club.
There you go. So she's
of Wichita Falls.
Of Wichita Falls.
Not the whole world.
Not the whole world. All right. Well, good, because she's on her. She will be here in about at 8 o'clock. That's the plan.
Yep.
So other than that, please comment and share. We can see your comments and things on here. Share our thing, which we didn't do yet. We've got to get on there, dude. We got a little into a discussion beforehand.
Got us a little sidetracked there.
So, but anyway, share it. Let everybody know. And otherwise, let's get into it. This is Get It Right Texoma. So we got our a local restaurant focus. So I'm going to have to do a little as he.
Yeah, this is Hook and Ladder Coffees and Wine Company. And they've been around, I want to say probably a decade now or something like that. It was basically two local firefighters, fire chief and deputy fire chief, actually, in Wichita Falls, and their wives that started this company here. And it's a real neat place. They have wines and, of course, coffee, like they say. But they also have sandwiches, flatbreads, and that sort of stuff. I sent you the link there.
No, I got it.
Yeah.
I'm working. Go ahead.
So
you
anyhow,
do your part.
But they're on 7th, I think 7th in Ohio, or 7th in Indiana.
Yeah. We actually just saw it last night as we were walking by.
Yeah, you drive over.
Down from Duck Coffee. Same street.
Same street, yeah, which is 7th Street.
Right.
And so, but it's over on the left-hand side of the road as you're walking out. There we go. All right. But it's a neat coffee bar and a wine tasting facility. They have, and I think they have a lot of local wines. I don't know if they do their own wine or not, to be honest with you. But they do a lot of Texas wines and that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, I hadn't been there yet myself, but they do have nitro cold brew coffee apparently.
Right. Yeah. So. They I think it just started as a wine place, and then they went into the coffee thing too as well. Okay. By the way, coffee has got to be the highest grossing margin. Tea is probably the highest grossing margin thing you could ever sell because it's basically some dirt and water.
Yeah.
with a little bit of fruit in it. But coffee's got to be still pretty high grossing.
Oh yeah, you got to right. Oh yeah, but hey, it's about the experience too. I think the reason that I think partly that Starbucks being the national chain. And some people hate Starbucks, some people love Starbucks, but I'll tell you, I think I see why, because they really put an emphasis on getting the baristas to treat you locally, like have see you, they know your name. I mean, I just feel like they create, for a national company, I think they will do one of the best jobs of customer service.
Okay,
now
we're talking about Hook and One.
I know, but I'm just saying that's what these guys do. These local,
they do.
And so that's why that's where a coffee shop is a community.
I will tell you what, that I'm glad I'm not into that. I'm glad I don't drink that, because I agree. There's people that it runs them. Coffee, I hear people, I can't do anything before my coffee in the morning. I hear people say stuff like that. I drink water. Right. It's all I drink. And not all, almost all I drink. Right. But I'm glad I'm not hooked on coffee. I'm not hooked on lattes. I'm not hooked on any of that sort of stuff. But and I'm glad I don't like experiences. I don't care about experiences like that.
Yeah, well.
It's just, which is fine. If other people do, it's fine. But I'm glad that because I think too many people, sometimes it drives too much of what they do. And I'm glad I don't care about experience. Yeah. I care about traveling and seeing different things. But as far as going and sitting and drinking a coffee somewhere or drinking a wine somewhere,
no, but people, right, for you.
But I'm glad that people do it. And I'm glad but not only that, but I have been here before. And yes, I don't drink coffee and I don't drink wine, but I do eat, obviously. Right. But you can click on their menu. I think they've got a menu on there. Yeah, right, click on menu, right there. Scroll down. Flatbreads. So they've got food and stuff like that. So it's not just a coffee and wine bar. Sure. They also, you could go there for and have you like a light dinner and that sort of thing as well. So it's a really neat atmosphere, great people, very nice, good local people that run it. Right. And we just want to talk about it. Oh, yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying, though. But whether it's coffee or food or whatever, I think that's why people come back to play. They even come back to our store and your store because of the how you make people. It's not you. It's the experience. The experience, how you are treated, and all of that. Yeah. And I say this is like how you make them feel. It's always the person. It's on the person on how they feel, because you can do everything right, and people don't feel. But if you create an atmosphere where they feel, because in other words, if somebody walks into your store, your restaurant, your whatever, and you go, help you, help you. Right. Yeah, you don't make anybody feel. Right. You don't make them. You can make somebody feel welcome. Right. Or you can create an atmosphere for somebody to feel welcome. Right. Now, when people say so and so makes me feel bad, bullshit. No. Drop that out of you have 100% ownership of your feelings. You made me feel bad. Drop that out of your. You created an environment that I felt bad or whatever. Right. But you felt bad. Quit putting it on other people. Right. But that's a little sidebar. But you should that doesn't mean you should certainly you shouldn't feel bad for not liking a place because of that environment. But if a business owner, if they don't treat you right, a business owner creates an environment where people do feel good, or it's an environment where it's easy for people to feel good. Yeah. Because the fact is, there are people out there that no matter what you do, they're going to be happy, and no matter what you do, they're going to be mad. Or they do what they can, but it's less likely they're going to come back if it's difficult, if there's resistance, if there's the negative feelings that are put out. And you don't have to worry about resistance at Hook and Ladder. Oh yeah, absolutely no. And that's what I'm saying about wine and all these local places. That's why we do this, is that we want to showcase these places that many times we've gone to them. Not every case, because we can't. It'd be. Because sometimes we don't like what they have, right? I mean, that's okay, though. Yeah. But that doesn't mean they're not good people. If you love it, go there. And I haven't been, or I may have been there once a long time ago. I've been there a few times, not a bunch, but I've been there a few times. But it's a great, like I said, good local people with a great business. Go support them. There you go. So, all right. Clay County Turkey Fest. The Clay County Turkey Fest. That's the only link we have. Okay, I'll get that. Clay County Turkey Fest is April the 9th through the 12th. So that's going to be next week. Is that right? That'll be next week. And this is a big deal in Clay County, which is one county over. Henrietta is kind of the county seat, and it all happens in Henrietta. And they have all kinds of turkey-related, competitions and that sort of thing. But a lot of vendors come out. They have not only competitions. They have like a street a parade. Generally, I believe they have a parade. They have vendors that come out, have a street festival, and that whole sort of thing. It's right on the Henrietta Courthouse from 10 to 2, as you can see.
Well, so what?
April the 11th.
Yeah, well, there says the 9th, the Battle of the Beards.
9th through 11th, the Battle of the Beards is, I guess it's the biggest turkey you get, beard. There's a lot of, we're not going to have to expand. Yeah, you're going to have to go on and read what it is. So but the festival itself, I believe, is on the 11th, which is, I believe, probably Saturday.
Yeah, it says Henrietta Courthouse Square 10 to 2, and then, that's
vendors, that's what I was talking about. Food and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, go check it out, go read up on it.
There's going to be a turkey calling contest. I'm going to tell you, if you want a piece of Americana, small town festivals are a way to go. And there's so many small towns that have a grape festival, a watermelon festival, a turkey festival. Holland, Texas, my parents grew up around because they were country kids, but they graduated from Holland High School, the Corn Festival. If you have time, go to one of those festivals in a small town, and you get a taste of the pride and that small towns have. They'll turn out, so you'll have a little bitty small town, and there'll be tons and tons of people that show up for these things. And you just see some really unique things, a lot of good people, everybody having a good time right there. And it's just a neat time, and it's a neat experience. Yeah. If you don't live, first off, in America, but especially if you don't live in parts of America, you don't experience this.
Oh, yeah.
High school football, for instance. In certain states, it's almost like a religion.
Oh, yeah.
In Texas, it is. When you drive through just about any small town, what's the tallest thing in a small town? A water tower.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
And
you usually don't have skyscrapers.
Right.
You have a water tower. And usually what's written on the water tower?
Oh, yeah, the high school.
The high school mascot.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, and you go to Europe. I mean, I've traveled pretty extensively in Europe and that sort of thing. You don't see that shit.
Well, it'd be soccer anyway.
Yeah, but
or
you don't even
football.
See it. Well, they don't even have high school mascots, and they don't.
Yeah.
They just don't have the pride.
Right, it's a different.
They don't have the pride in their town or as a whole.
Right.
As we do, and I say the collective we as Americans, and especially certain parts of America. So anyhow, go check it out, the Turkey Fest.
All right. So, what's on
the next thing up? The Apple book. We're not can't review the whole book.
Right.
But so Terry. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Came in here with his book.
The book over there, yes.
Yeah, came in here with the book and encouraged everybody to go out and check out this book. Well, I don't have time to sit and read a book.
Right.
But I do have time while I'm working out, I'm driving and stuff like that to listen to audiobooks and mowing and everything else I do. And I've been listening to the Apple audiobook. And I'm going to tell you, I got to where I was working out, and every morning I get up morning, stretch, and work out. And I was listening to this audiobook because I couldn't almost wait. I would lay there for sit there for an extra 2 or 3 minutes trying to hear the rest of the story there. It is a fascinating story.
Right.
And I'm not to the point. I think I'm to chapter 26. I got about 8 hours left in it, but I think it's like a 17-hour deal.
Yeah.
Lots of sidebars, which are really interesting. Steve Jobs has not come back. Oh, spoiler alert. Should I have said that? That Steve Jobs is going to come back?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But it's the early days of
Apple,
and all of the turmoil, all of the huge successes and the turmoil, and the fact that Apple was almost bankrupt.
Oh, yeah.
And that Apple tried to merge with IBM at one time.
Yeah.
And that they looked at IBM as the big blue. They called it blue.
Right.
And it was the big machine.
Yeah.
But it really is a fascinating listen. I can't say a read.
Yeah.
But if you get a chance, even if you're not into, I don't own an Apple
right.
I bought a lot of Apple stuff, but I have an Android
Still working
phone.
On him.
Yeah, I have an Android phone. I have Windows computers and stuff like that. I mean, I'm just one of those. But it's a fascinating story of an American success story.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And it's so interesting to hear the iterations of what people were thinking. And this is a good, well-written book. You know, you have those books that are kind of glossed over, and there's not really much meat to them. You could tell whoever wrote this book, they researched the hell out of this
David Pogue. Yeah, he's been a writer that's been around for a long time, especially in the tech industry. But he had a lot of inside track, he had a lot of contacts. And
you got to know the people and go in and get the stories from the people who were there and who lived.
Right, and I'm actually I bought the books, but I'm not a physical book reader. I bought it really for the pictures, because and the fact
that's what you said about Playboy too. Yeah.
For the articles.
Yeah, that's right.
For the articles, yeah. But anyway, So anyway, this book, I got it physically because I saw it and I thought, oh man, that would be a great. Obviously, I'm an Apple guy, and thought, well, I ordered 2 copies, and then he goes, man, I started listening to that book. You got me kind of started on it. It's like, wow. So what did I have to do? I went and downloaded it, and now I'm listening to it. So I'm on chapter 11. So but yeah, there's a really bunch of cool. It's a good story.
That's the thing. You don't have to be. And that's what I try to tell people about documentaries. I watched a documentary on Nickelback the other day.
Okay.
I don't really care that much about Nickelback's music. I like a few of their songs, pretty good. But it's a fascinating story. Mm-hmm. The Beastie Boys. I watched the Beastie Boys documentary. I don't care about the Beastie Boys and their music, but the story is what's fascinating. What behind the scenes and stuff like that. And if you watch documentaries, you don't have to love documentaries. There's a documentary, one that I would recommend to everybody, and you don't have to be a car guy. It's called Uppity. It's about the first black man, Willie T. Ribbs, who raced at Indy. You don't have to be a car person to understand the fascination behind this whole story of Willie T. Ribbs and his journey to go from a plumber's plumbing, growing up in a plumber's family and plumbing and stuff like that, to literally racing at the Indy 500.
Yeah.
And everything in between. So,
well, it's a good book
called Uppity.
And there's a connection to technology companies all over, and some that are still here, some that are not.
Oh my goodness, it's crazy, isn't it?
So anyway, so go check it out. And it's on you and I are listening to it on Audible, but there's the different places you can get audiobooks, or if you like to just read the book or physically or whatever, get it. It's a good book.
There you go.
All right. Cool. Well, then, what else we got going?
Got a couple of new leaders. Wichita Falls is named Mitch Bates.
Okay.
It's interim chief of police. Chief Borrego retired recently after many, many years of service.
Okay.
I have my glasses, so I kind of can't read what he's done, but I've got that for you there.
All right. So he was former police chief in Garland for 16 years, Garland PD. He also served
I think Garland is probably 250,000 people. So just in context, it's a much bigger city than Wichita Falls.
Yeah, he also served as deputy city manager for the city of Garland for 7 years.
That was probably one of the fascinating things to the city, and I don't know, I have no inside track on this, but the fact that he was not only a chief of police, but he was also a city manager.
Yeah, that gets you.
So he has the city management background as well as a chief of police, because you got to understand, a chief of police in a city the size of Wichita Falls, chief of police in Henrietta, Texas, you're probably going to be arresting people.
Right.
City of Wichita Falls, I don't know when the last time that Chief Borrego arrested anybody. Yeah. It's not because he's lazy. It's because he's got all these administrators. You're more of an administrator.
Yeah, exactly.
At that point. It's just like when you have the public information officer at a police department. Their police department or their police officers, and don't mess with them, they can't arrest you.
Yeah.
They got a gun, they got a badge, and they have the authority, but they're not working the beat.
Right.
They're not out there generally a beat cop.
Yep. So we hope, I guess they're on the search, obviously, then.
Right. It looks like he's an interim. Right. So I don't know that they're going to he's gonna ever apply or be an applicant for a full-fledged, or if he's just literally an interim, which that happens. And I think it's a good idea. I applaud the city for doing this. We may have the right candidate in the city of Wichita Falls right now, in part of our police department, to be the chief of police.
Right.
So I don't want to say that nobody in our chief, because I don't know, our police department would be qualified. I'm sure there are some qualified people, but there's no excuse, no secrets. There have been some problems, real and perceived, and I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of it's perception, but they are issues. The city has hired a consulting firm to come in and do a full-scale investigation of the practices and stuff of the police department, and I think it was a good idea for them to go outside, bring somebody else in with a fresh set of eyes, look at the police department, and then turn out and go, okay, here's what we're doing great, which is, I'm going to say, is probably most things.
Sure.
Here's the few things that we're doing wrong and we need to improve on. But that's not an indictment of the current police department in Wichita Falls, in my opinion. It's not an indictment of the people that work in the police department, and it's not an indictment of the leadership in the police department. There could be a leader who's already there somewhere in the department, a lieutenant or something, who could move up to a chief. But I think this is an interim. It's called an interim thing for a reason. A step to come in, kind of wipe the slate, bring a fresh set of eyes in, and make sure that everybody's doing the right thing. Because you got to understand, in a lot of places, if somebody does the wrong thing, it sucks, and it could cost some money and stuff like that. In a position like a police department, a law enforcement, and it doesn't have to be the police, it could be FBI or whatever, when somebody does the wrong thing, people can die.
Yeah.
People can go to jail or have prosecution. People can lose their livelihoods. People can lose their freedom. So wrong things in law enforcement have more consequences than wrong things at MacTech Solutions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or Eddie Hill's Fun Cycles.
Right.
So we have to be careful. We have to understand that. And this is a good idea. I applaud the city leadership, the city manager, and the city council for doing this. I think it was a great step. And just everybody breathe. Yeah. Give everybody a chance, including the local law enforcement. Most of the people that are in law enforcement are good people. Yeah. I mean, the overwhelming majority. I'm not talking about 75%. I'm going to say that 97% of the people that are in law enforcement are good people. But you do have some assholes. You do have some bad apples in every organization. Yeah. It's just that when you have a bad apple in law enforcement, it can be much more. Right. The consequences can be higher.
Yep.
So,
yep. All right.
We welcome Mitch Bates.
All right. So then the next is City of Burke-Burnett has appointed Lindsay McNabb Fox
as a new city manager. And let me tell you, she has had a whirlwind background here. She's done 3 jobs, I think, in Burke-Burnett, isn't it?
Well, yeah, she's finance director. She came in May of 24 for that, and then was appointed assistant city manager of administration in January of 2025. Before joining Burke-Burnett, she worked. She worked as a finance director of the city of Shawnee, Oklahoma, director of financial services for the city of Bridgeport, Texas, and assistant budget director in the Office of Management and Budget for the city of Oklahoma City.
So that's very impressive.
Yeah, she's got a lot. Yeah.
I might see about trying to get her on.
Okay.
Yeah. But she ought to walk around like George Jefferson, moving on up, moving on up. Yeah. Because I mean, you talk about somebody who's had a rise.
Oh yeah.
She got hired in 24 in one position. In 25, moved up to another position, and now has moved up to another position.
Yep.
To the ultimate position, I would say. So,
okay.
Great job. Welcome, Lindsay McNabb Fox. And Burke-Burnett is a great community, about 10,000 people, I believe.
Okay.
I'm guessing. That's just north of us. It's right out at the Red River. It's right at the border.
That's it.
They're our border town for Oklahoma. And but neat community. There is some commerce there, but a whole lot of people that live there work in Wichita Falls.
Yep.
Kind of like in Clay County.
Right.
There's not a lot of commerce in Clay County.
Right.
There's not a lot of opportunities for jobs outside the hospital and the schools and stuff like that. But in the brick plant, there's some stuff out there. But most people, a lot of people that live in Clay County that still work for a living, or in Burke-Burnett that work for a living, or in Iowa Park that work for a living, coming towards Wichita Falls.
Yep. All right. More and more people in Congress are talking about not being paid during the government shutdown. Charlie Hurt.
Okay.
All right.
So
who's this?
The first two parts of it. Number one, Charlie Hurt's not in Congress.
Oh, okay.
Number one, and I wish we had the tapes. And if Mike was here, Mikey, I miss you so many ways. Mike's heard me. I said this 15 years ago. The first time I can remember us having a government shutdown when we were on the radio and we were talking News Talk 1290, and it was a lot of politics is what we talked. Mm-hmm. I can remember at the time, and then I said it almost every shutdown since, if the government shuts down, the people who are causing the shutdown, which is Congress, should not be paid. And not only that, I go a step further. Their staff should not be paid.
Right.
Now, it's not because I'm evil. It's not because I don't want people to get paid. It's because I want people to not keep other people from getting paid. Share the pain or don't shut it down. Figure out a way to not shut it down.
Right.
And to me, it's not so much that if Congress doesn't get paid, that could be rough on a few of them. But where it would really affect them is their staffs. Because it's pretty easy if you're sitting in Congress and you don't know any TSA workers. It's pretty easy to go, they're not going to get paid.
Right.
But you know what? If your chief of staff or your deputy chief of staff is not getting paid, and you know their family.
Oh yeah, because
you know they got a mortgage.
Right.
You know that they support kids. All of a sudden, that makes it a lot more personal to you to get off your ass and get something done.
And some of these staffers don't make a lot, and they work in Washington D.C. They make $40,000. Some of these.
And you can't. And it costs so much to live up there.
Yeah, and that's
they have to
that's
live
not
in
much
Virginia
in
and stuff like that. I believe.
Well, even all that area is hot.
Yeah.
But especially in D.C. itself. But probably most of them,
But they don't live in D.C. A lot of them, I don't think.
All right. So that's. But now, didn't Senator Kennedy has a bill?
He's proposed a bill. That's what I'm saying. More and more people in Congress. I don't know that this is ever going to happen.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's kind of. There's more momentum going that way.
Right.
And I think the more people in Congress start talking about it, the American public will kind of talk about it, I believe.
Yeah.
And at some point this may happen. And it would stop some of this bullshit.
Yeah.
I also, if it was up to me, I think it ought to be put to a popular vote. The next time, let the American public vote for it.
Yeah, but how do they do it?
Amendment. Constitutional amendment.
Oh, you're talking about in that way. Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's a constitutional amendment that if the government shuts down, during any kind of shutdown, anybody in Congress that is a Congress or congressional staff does not get paid during the shutdown.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing was Charlie
Hurt. Who's
Charlie Hurt is a Fox News contributor. He's a host. I think he's actually a farmer. He's like a West Virginia farmer, but he's also a lawyer and stuff like that. He had an interesting take that I've never thought of on this one as well. He said, "What about a tax holiday? We're paying for these government services. Now all of a sudden we're still paying our taxes, but they're not spending the money how they're supposed to spend the money.
Give us a rebate?
Yeah. We just don't pay taxes.
Oh, okay.
While the government shut down.
Oh, okay.
You basically, whatever your 365 days a year, at the end of the year, you cut it back, and whatever you get prorated for every one of those days. Now, that's another motivation.
Yeah.
I think it's a hell of a good idea because the fact is, we're still paying the same amount of taxes, but yet we have government workers that are not being paid. That's bullshit.
We're just theoretically going into less debt.
Well, I mean, I know that there's part of that, but to me, it's no. But to me, what I want to do is put the onus on Congress, the people who can make a difference,
right,
to get off their asses and make a difference.
No, I got it. Yep. All right.
So anyhow,
well then, so what do we got up? Oh, the birthright. I actually listened to some of the deliberations from the Supreme Court. Is like about 2 hours. I didn't listen to all of it, but it was interesting. Okay, so here we are. The other side, the people who are for birthright citizenship, basically say, well, that's what the Constitution says. It's, you're born here. Well, subject to if you're subject to the laws of the land or whatever. I forget the exact wording.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that the question is, how are you subject to the laws of our land is basically what it's saying. Now, they tore it apart. Now, I was listening to the first part was for or against birthright citizenship. General somebody, I forget who it was. I don't know if it was Attorney General or I guess.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So in any case, they are, but they can, the judges, all of the judges, whether they were.
They're justices. I'm not
or justices.
Okay,
justices.
We're at the Supreme Court level as well.
Right, okay. Yeah. But the as they were asking questions, like Barrett, forget her.
Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah. And all the other Chief Justice, everybody was asking these questions. Now, they were asking it both directions, though.
Mm-hmm.
They were
that's their job,
right? And asking both sides of it, and so, well, what about this, and what about this? Well, I don't know. It seems like that gets so caught up in all the details, and sometimes you got to rise up a little bit and look at common sense. Look at it's not that we should do what the rest of the world does, because we do a lot of things that the rest of the world.
That's true.
We don't want to do what they do, but when it comes to citizenship, that's pretty fundamental across all countries. Now, whether you want to live there or not, that's
very few countries have birthright citizenship.
Right.
Now, some of them have no. Most countries have no birthright citizenship.
Right.
Some of them have modified. In other words, a lot of European countries, several European countries, if you have one parent that is a citizen of that country, and you're born there, you automatically get citizenship.
Okay.
And by the way, that's how I would do it. Let's go back to the history of this. First off, this was not in the first 10 amendments.
Right.
This was an amendment made later. The reason it was made later was because of slavery. Because you had people that were brought over here against their will,
right,
but participated in our society.
Right. They were forced to, but
they still participated.
Right. And then
so like it or not, or whether it was not right, it wasn't right. But my point is, slaves were brought here and were participants in our society.
Right.
Okay. So when slavery ended, yes, they weren't citizens, but their children were born here. And the whole point behind this was an act of grace by the ruling party or the ruling people at the time, the majority of ruling people that said, hey, it's not fair that because these slaves weren't citizens, that their children were born here can't automatically be citizens because they were. They should be.
Right.
So that's the whole point why this amendment passed, okay?
Right.
Which is fine. There's always been, I knew a guy who was a police officer, a fireman. And firemen are EMTs, first responders. And he told me, his joke was, or his comment was, he said, I should have been a gynecologist or an obstetrician. He said, you don't know how many babies I delivered. He worked south of I-10 in El Paso for most of his career. South of I-10 in El Paso is basically on the border. Okay. And he said he's delivered babies in parking lots. He's delivered them on the riverbanks. He's delivered them everywhere. And it's basically moms who come across and go, oh, I'm ready to go. Get across, boom, now my kid's a citizen. And when that happens, now all of a sudden, you can't deport the mother, so she stays, and that kid has now has benefits, complete government benefits. Yeah. So you have that, which is wrong. The second thing that you have is, now this is kind of a whole industry that's clicked up. You have these billionaires. That because, people do want to have an American citizenship, an American passport. Mm-hmm. So they come over here, and there's companies who bring billionaires over here, or people that are very wealthy, just so their children could be born here and say they're an American citizen. And they don't participate in our country, right, and their families aren't from here. And that's gaming the system. It goes back to gaming the system. Yeah. So that's my whole thing. I don't like any time a system is gained.
Right. Yeah. Well, and
because the whole point behind it, this was for the children of slaves.
Right.
And it was meant to be that way, and it was the right thing to do.
Right. Well, and we've got our guest is here.
So, we'll wrap it up here.
But what I guess it's just interesting. Rachel is obviously an advocate for all children, and I don't think it matters. Yeah, come on over.
Yeah, come on in.
You're not on. We have it, just the two of us here.
Yeah, but you'll be on in just a second.
Yeah,
with your name and everything on it.
Yeah, but So anyway, my point is that this isn't about fairness. It's about fairness to the country overall, but parents are responsible for what they do and put their kids in these positions of being having to, like, what parents get thrown in jail. Well, are you going to not let them go to jail because their parents are not going to be available? Are you going to, unless you keep them out of jail? No, there are consequences. But ultimately, though, it's not about the kids. We'll take care of the kids in the meantime, but that doesn't mean they should ultimately end up staying just because they're, in my opinion.
So we'll see what the Supreme Court says. Right now, it's in the Supreme Court, and they're going to come out and see what happens.
All right. Well,
I think it should go to a popular. It's like everything else. I think amendments, it should be put to amendment, go to a popular vote, and let America decide.
All right. Well, we are. There we go. So
Rachel Wolff, good morning. How are you doing?
All right.
Really good. I can't guess who you're with.
No. Yeah. But we have. So the camera's over there. Yep. But we're because I know we want to look over there. But So anyway. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
Rachel Wolff, you are the new CEO, and is it president and CEO or just CEO?
CEO.
Okay. Of the Boys and Girls Club of Wichita Falls.
That's right.
And you have a pretty fascinating journey from what I understand.
I have.
Yeah, you didn't grow up in Wichita Falls and just stuck around here and did nothing, right?
No, sir.
Okay.
I've worked all over this beautiful country and seen most of the world. So.
Absolutely. Well, give us a little background. Like, where did you start? Where did you grow up? And then what kind of started you on your journey, and what all have you done?
Yeah, well, my grandfather fought in World War II against the Japanese.
Okay.
Really had a heart to give back, so he spent his whole life as a Lutheran missionary in Japan.
Wow.
Which my father followed in his footsteps. So I grew up in Japan, speaking Japanese. I was at the top of my class in Japanese school. You know, that was my whole life.
So you're Lutheran, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, which is Catholic light. You know, now I'm Methodist, which is Catholic light.
Well, remember, Luther was a crazy rebel.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I follow in his footsteps.
Yeah. Well, it's even worse because the Methodist people went off. They said, Luther is too sane. We need to go off of them. We're nuts.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But, then my parents were very worried that I didn't know how to speak English. Made sure we ticked that box.
Wow.
So, yeah, thankfully I can be on your show here. And
So your first language is Japanese.
That's right.
That's amazing.
My father tongue in this case, right?
Wow.
And I was in English as a second language.
Now, do you still speak Japanese fluently, I'm sure?
I do.
Okay, awesome.
I do. Yeah. When I get really angry, you'll see. Or silly.
Yeah.
Or silly and fun. Yeah. So, but yeah, we love Wichita Falls. We were looking for a new opportunity after moving back from overseas, serving with nonprofits like CARE and World Vision. But most of my background is youth-focused. Child-focused, helping teens, school programs, health programs. So Boys and Girls Clubs was a great fit in that way. And then when I got the call about Wichita Falls, I said, well, I don't really know where it is. But hey, Texas, sunshine, great people, room to move around. I've got an 8 and 10-year-old of my own. So we need space.
Be honest. Did you first think it was Kansas when you heard Wichita?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't.
Most people do. They hear Wichita, they think Kansas.
It was always followed with Wichita Falls, Texas.
Yeah. Okay.
Texas.
So yeah, you're
you know,
good.
like
Okay.
those people that you always have the whole name.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well,
like that.
but at least your luggage didn't go to Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah,
instead
that's
of-
right,
It's
yeah.
usually you're going to Wichita, Kansas, and it goes to Wichita Falls. But anyway, that was the old story. So, all right.
My husband grew up in Kansas City.
Okay.
So he loves the Midwest, and he thought, yeah, let's definitely go for this.
Okay.
And the board believed in me, so here we are.
Awesome. So where all did you live? Kind of gives a brief. I know not every little town, but what countries have you lived in?
When we moved back from Japan, I was in high school. So I went to high school outside of Seattle.
But that's a country. Yeah. Washington's like its own country.
Went to college in Washington, D.C., so I ended up being a reporter in our nation's capital.
So
I had a Pentagon press pass as a young pup.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got to see it all. That was back in the day. We won't say what year.
Yeah.
So you were on the West Coast, and you went to the East Coast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then my husband did his graduate work outside of Chicago, so we were right there
right in the middle.
Yeah, ate a lot of beef, cheap beef in
Yeah.
Chicago. And then we started exploring overseas roles. Can we make a difference in person? So I ran teams in Somalia.
Wow.
Most of us have heard that name.
Yes.
It's just
It wasn't a Leering team, was it?
It's just it's a crazy place, just like it sounds, but wonderful people. Yeah. So really had a blast there. We lived in Kenya as a family.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Then we had a taste of South Asia. Very friendly people. So we lived in Bangladesh, working with refugees, and then in Nepal.
Oh wow, you lived in Nepal.
Yes.
So you must be acclimatized to elevation because Nepal's high up in the air.
We love the mountains. It's a very special place, and I know we have a lot of Nepali students here at MSU, so they're very fantastic people. And then we went to a very different context all the way in West Africa, right on the Atlantic Ocean. So I guess you could say I've seen it all.
You have. Wow,
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how much different is because Kenya in Somalia is on the south coast of Africa, right?
No, in the north.
Somalia is?
Up by the Gulf of Eden, a lot of...
Okay, other way around.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But it's got a lot of ocean,
Yes.
a lot of desert. Not too different from Texas, maybe. But yeah, coming to Wichita Falls, coming to the South, I've never lived in the South, I actually find that I fit culturally for who I am. You know, I'm a bit brash. I like to have fun. I like to joke around. But, in the cultures where I grew up in and where I've served, there's a bit of formality, so the yes, sir, yes, ma'am. I love my kids picking that up.
Yeah.
The respect and the kindness, that fundamentally this is a kind community. And stepping into a role like Boys and Girls Clubs, that's been a huge takeaway for me in my first 4 months. That this is a city, we have our differences, we have our debates, lots of fun debates. The Art Walk was an interesting experience. I'm really glad it's back online.
Right.
But fundamentally, we come together for our children, for our teens, for our youth. We want young professionals to stay in our city. We dream together for what this city can be, what it's been. We celebrate our past. We look towards the future. And for our future, we need healthy, safe, job-ready youth.
See,
and that's part of what I do.
You're speaking my language. I was on the school board for 12 years.
Okay.
And I also served about 4 years on the campfire board as well. So most of my, a majority of my, a lot of my volunteer work that I've done has been, because school board's volunteer. I mean, you're elected, but you get paid bubkus. It's a big job. Has been going to youth stuff. So how long have you worked actually for the Boys and Girls Club?
So 4 months now.
Totally. I mean, you weren't in the Boys and Girls Club before you came?
No.
So you weren't in somewhere else with the different organizations in before.
That's right. Boys and Girls Club is this year America's number 6 beloved charity. And we've got incredible nonprofits and charities in this country. So that says a lot. People know the brand. People love the brand. And I got to tell you, just getting to know people, being at the grocery store, visiting churches in this town, it seems like everybody grew up in the Boys and Girls Clubs, knows someone who is, has been involved, has been on the board. And so we have a lot to build on as we look to our next 100 years. We're getting close to our centennial.
Or used to play sports. I mean, so many people have played sports, basketball, football, and stuff like that through Boys Club. Whether you I went to the Boys Club some growing up, but also sports was kind of one of the big things.
Was there? It seems like some people have said that Boys Club, but did it used to have a different name, or did
Boys Club?
Yeah.
It was okay.
It was just boys,
right? But when did all that? Yeah.
In the early 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Used to, and this was back in the 60s, from what I understand. Yeah. You swam naked because they didn't want you. They didn't want you to put your. It was all boys. It wasn't like there was mixed.
Hard to imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, but you would go because they didn't want you. They didn't know how scummy you were, and they didn't want you to put your dirty clothes in the deal.
We've learned a lot, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've learned a lot.
But apparently all the boys swam naked at one time.
Okay. Well, all right. So, but if it changed, and now but were girls admitted up to at any point before the name changed?
When I was a kid and went to the Boys Club, it was only boys.
Yeah,
okay, gotcha.
Girls Clubs actually
that Girls Club, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Similar to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts.
Right.
It was like a YMCA. There was the YMCA and the YWCA.
Right.
So young men's and young women's, and they didn't cross. I mean, So.
But then, okay, well, cool. I've heard a lot of people.
Early 90s is when the transition happened to where it included.
And I hear the boys are so much happier with the girls.
Yeah.
Well, you need that. You need it. It is nice to have. Everything is all just testosterone. It's nice to have non-testosterone.
We need each other, right?
Yeah,
but I got to tell
you,
in our leadership programs, we still have the girl-focused programs. We've got, Journey to Manhood programs. What does it mean to be a young man, a responsible young woman? Right. And so there's certainly a place for that.
And that's one thing I do appreciate about it is because, and the Boy Scouts have done this as well, as Boys and Girl Scouts. These groups have combined, but they still maintain somewhat of their identity.
Of course.
Because it is. A young boy's journey and a young girl's journey are two different things.
Right.
Yeah. I learned because I had a daughter, and I raised her from, jump, and I raised her by myself for about 9 years, from the time she was 2 to 11, and I didn't have a boy. I just had a girl. So I only knew kind of what it was to raise a girl.
Today we'd call you a girl dad.
Yeah, that's it makes me sick hearing that. But anyhow, but then
it's cute.
I got remarried, and I gained another girl, but I gained a boy, and he was 11. So it's one of those. So I got to go through that journey, and it's a much different dynamic.
Oh, I imagine.
So I think it's great that you guys can combine them and get them ready, but then also understand and that there are differences, and that they can and to kind of help them focus on those things.
Absolutely. Right.
So, all right. Well, what do you got? I know you were talking about, because we were texting and yesterday. You said, "Well, I got some stuff." And so, what? Yeah,
we kind of want to do the background. By the way, would it be put you on the spot to say "Welcome to Get It Right Texoma" in Japanese?
いらっしゃいませ.
Really?
Texoma ni yokoso.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Is how you would say,
Texoma ni yokoso. So Japanese also is like Spanish. Sometimes it's the reverse
The grammar is reversed.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
Okay.
Correct. So you can imagine when I was learning proper English, it was
Wow, I bet that was
pretty
rough.
messed up.
Yeah.
Pretty messed up.
Anyhow, go ahead. Just talk about what you're doing.
Yeah. So, like we were saying, I think Boys and Girls Clubs is a nonprofit in Wichita Falls that almost everybody knows. But, when you think you know somebody, when you think you know something, there's always that wow factor, right? Mm-hmm. And so I've been learning as a newcomer, but as I talk to folks around town, they've also said, oh, I had no idea. So I wanted to share some of those, hidden secrets and
awesome. That's great.
Wow factors about the Boys and Girls Clubs that I'm discovering, and hopefully Wichita Falls, your listeners, viewers will discover with us. So I just came back from the Texas Summit. We were well represented by our Youth of the Year, one of our, top students.
Congratulations.
Yeah, from Legacy High School. But in the state of Texas as a whole, there's almost 3 million kids of school age that don't have access to after-school programs. These are kids whose parents want this for them, okay? But there's just no access. And this is even in our urban centers, not necessarily in the rural areas. Where we don't have a club.
That's surprising. The rule doesn't surprise me because you can't have a boys' club in Paducah, Texas.
Yeah, and part of this is transportation and access is so important. Even if there's a club in your city, can you get there? Can you get your kids there? And so, I was reflecting on this and thinking about how blessed we are in Wichita Falls because we have 5 physical clubs in every part of the city, right? Including downtown, about stone's throw here from your studio, in Southeast, close to the CEC. We've got one up north, not too far from the base, and so on. So, and even on the east side.
Got one
that's
on the east
our
side
brand
too.
spanking
That's
new.
what I was going to say. The east side's a new one.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And in fact, we've set a goal for ourselves. Right now, we're serving about 2,700 youth across the city. This is almost 20% of our school-age kids in the city. But we are really ambitious to say, you know what? We know the need is there. The access has sort of fallen off since COVID. We want to double our numbers by our centennial.
Wow.
That's 3 years from now. Wow. Yeah.
That's aggressive.
And this is because we see the difference that it makes.
Absolutely.
What are the problems that are facing our youth? I mean, not all of us are experts. I'm a bit of an expert, but it's not a secret, right? Academics. We talk about this all the time. The ISD is struggling. Parents are struggling. So we've got...
Part of the parents struggling is their own fault, though, too. I'm going to throw that. I said part of it. I said when I was on the school board for years, I sat in the dais there, and I said, you can't overcome... It's hard to overcome crappy parenting. Now, there's a lot of good parents out there, and there's a lot of parents that mean well, but there's also too many parents that are sitting there like this, and they're letting little Johnny or Susie do whatever they want to do. So it does start at home, but I'm glad that you guys are there to fill the gaps.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. When I was a kid, I studied, but my parents were both working, and they were not there. So if I'm struggling with a math problem, and...
Yeah, there are some of those cases like that, yeah.
We're busy people, right? We're busy people. So we've got a power hour program at every club. We've got to focus on STEM. In fact, and we've got online learning as well. Kids love that these days. And our one of our online learning programs is #1 in the nation.
That's awesome.
Can you imagine?
That's great.
Of all the 5,000 Boys and Girls Clubs everywhere in the U.S., we're #1 in that program for the past 6 months. Wow. So we're doing something right. Obesity is a problem with kids. It's hard to find time to move. So we've got regular exercise. We talked about athletics, intramural sports, pickup games of kickballs. Every center has these beautiful gyms.
Yes.
And then small gyms for the younger kids as well. Bullying, cyberbullying. You talked about the phone.
Oh, that's insane.
And it's changing every day now with AI. We're seeing some very scary, serious cases.
That was one of the big things. I was a big proponent, but once again, I said this when I was on the school board, finally came to fruition, that we need to get phones out of schools.
Yeah, and I'm glad that's happening.
I am too.
And we do the same thing in the clubs. This is a safe place. And, nearly 9 out of our 10 members say that the Boys and Girls Clubs is as safe or safer than any other place in their life.
You got to understand, and I totally agree. I used to give this talk to bus drivers when I was on the board. I told them how important they were because I said, you need to understand sometimes some of our children in this town, their lives are so chaotic outside of school.
That's right.
The only place they feel safe is at school, at the boys' club, at campfire, or whatever it is. And so it's so important for you to set the tone there, because unfortunately, when they leave your purview, they don't know what's coming next. And so it's great. I totally agree that what you guys do is so key and so crucial to the youth and the safe part of their existence.
Well, my kids are club members too, right? They're 8 and 10. And my husband was so impressed because they came home and they were rattling off all these cyber safety, tips and tricks that they had just learned.
That's awesome.
And absorbed, and this is going to equip them. Thankfully, they don't have phones. They won't have phones for a long time if it's up to me, but this is what is affecting their peers and their peer group. So bullying, and then I got to say, and this is where, I really want to share the message with everyone that Boys and Girls Clubs is for everyone. One of the problems we're seeing, and this is with kids in our honors classes in our high schools too, apathy for the future. Apathy is epidemic among our youth. Why? Well, the world is chaotic. The world is scary, right? They're on their phones. That alone, mental health problems are skyrocketing. And so the workforce development, the job coaching, the mentorships, and we have art and dance programs, that inspiration about developing the whole self. It's not a small thing. Right. And then finally, food insecurity. So we know the demographics of this town. The kids, many of them are hungry. They don't always have food at home. We have a hot meal every single day. Yeah. So I'm really excited about getting more kids in the door, especially our older teens. They need us most.
Yes, I was going to say that's
absolutely.
Right. Well, and having, I think, just like in school, you've got kids from all backgrounds, and to have, like you said, it's for all kids.
That's right.
We want, because what that helps is that some of these, not necessarily older kids, but the kids that might have come from a little, I'd say better, but a more enriching family life, that they can actually mentor some of the other kids in the sense of, hey, you're there, and to help them out and to show that there are other things, and eventually you're not necessarily, of course, that can get some deep discussions. You
also need diversity. So,
right.
And I don't mean racial. I mean cultural. Diversity, and it has much more to do than the color of somebody's skin these days to haves and have-nots. Right. And the fact of the matter is, everybody benefits from this. The have-nots benefit, and the haves benefit just because you have two parents at home, and once again, doesn't matter what color you are, but you have two parents at home, you live in a 4,000 square foot house, you don't want for anything. It's good to go and see kids who don't have that, who don't live in that big house, who maybe have one parent at home who's busy and working, and they don't understand. And you when you get that enrichment for both sides, from everybody learns more about it and learns how, because you're going to deal with people. I always said that I don't want my kids to be the only of one thing in a school, but I don't want of either way. But I don't want my kids to be the everything of one school. I want them to be in a diverse environment where they learn, because once you get in the real world, as you've seen in your travels, you've got to learn diversity. You have to understand that people are different. They're culturally different. And a lot of it's based on their background or haves and have-nots, and you need to learn how to deal with everybody and respect everybody's
That's right.
Where they're coming from.
Well, and I think service is a huge emphasis as well.
Huge.
And I'm really proud to say, we've got these leadership clubs that start in middle school, go up to high school. Torch Club is for the middle school kids. One of our Torch Clubs took second in the nation. They won a $5,000 prize right here in Wichita Falls.
That's awesome.
We have to do better about telling our story, right? Obviously. But this just shows, and that club is a mix of kids from all economic backgrounds.
That's awesome.
They're all learning the value of service and that they have something to give.
Yeah.
Right? And it shapes their self-image. Who am I? And I think that's where that apathy comes from. What's my purpose? What am I here for? What am I good at? And, the traditional models are sort of changing, right? You're good at math. Okay, go try this. You're good at fixing things. Try this. Those paths are still there, but there's a lot of confusion. They hear the adults talking about, what's happening to the job market, and, should I go to college? And so in that environment, helping kids with adults who are safe, who know their name, right? I come to this club, you know who I am, you know what I'm going through. And let's be honest, we were teenagers once, right?
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if you've got 2 loving parents, you know you're going to college, you're economically stable. Teenagers need other adults to turn to. That's a huge part of it.
It's part of growing up. It's part of our biology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just our biology, any mammal. Right. People don't realize. I mean, mammals, you go out and look in the mammal world, you see, and it happens in all of them, but a lot of males rough and tumble play. Sure. And that is ubiquitous in mammalians, and it needs to happen because that's how you learn limits. Because when you're a little kid, when you're two little boys get into a little scuffle, I mean, you don't want them to go crazy, but they get in a little scuffle and they learn limits because you don't want those kids growing up to be 18, 19, 20 years old and be a grown man who could really hurt somebody and not understand what their limits are.
Yeah. Well, and that's the prevention aspect, right? We don't want any of our kids to go over those limits.
No.
And especially when you're a teenager, it's a time of experimentation, finding out who you are. You want to break some rules. I remember with our oldest, I actually, because she was, such a type A and doing everything right, I sat down with her and I said, these are some ideas of how you might rebel because it is an important developmental milestone. And she's like, Mom, you are too much. But we want our kids to kind of push against those limits without doing something they can't take back.
That's
without doing something that's going to ruin their life.
Because consequences tend to be much more minor when you're young than they do when you get older.
Right.
So you need to learn them. Yeah.
Right. And that's where those, safe boundaries, learning the limits, as you said, getting that energy out, my goodness, right? All of that comes into play. But here's what I'm really excited about. So Boys and Girls Clubs of America did a study for us recently and found across the board that every dollar that we as Wichita Falls community puts into the Boys and Girls Club returns $10.32 into the community economically and socially.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's jaw-dropping, right?
That's massive.
The only reason we are able to do what we're able to do, we give access to any kid of any economic background anywhere in the city to Boys and Girls Clubs for $30 a year. Yeah. That's the enrollment fee. There are no other fees. Spring break, summer, we've got incredible offerings, after school, right? Award-winning programs. It's a $30 enrollment fee. And a lot of parents do give back. They give donations. They bring in holiday things.
Yeah, you couldn't run the organization on $30 a head.
No, sir.
No, it takes a lot more than that.
It's fundamentally, scores and scores of generous folks in this town who give back. Foundations, the grants that we apply for, we're very successful with, are planning for the future. But if you, Terry, if you're like, yeah, I'd like to give $30 to the Boys and Girls Club, every dollar of that multiplies an impact for our city more than tenfold.
Which is crazy because in normal dollars, like say the city economy in general, you drop it in and it's about 7.5 times. Basically what they say is if you bring $1 into Wichita Falls, any city, let's say, but Wichita Falls, and somebody from Dallas comes here and they get a hotel room and they spend that money, every dollar that they spend here bounces around about 7.5 times before it's kind of exhausted.
Yeah.
And so this is actually better than the average is better than just what the city average is.
That's right. And why is that? Because our kids learn to serve. Because our programs are preventing more expensive outcomes, right, for the community. Because our programs are giving kids confidence and job readiness.
Awesome.
Real world skills. By the time they graduate and they've been a Boys and Girls Clubs member, our Youth of the Year winner for this year, 11 years in the Boys and Girls Clubs.
Yeah.
So people have invested in her and she's invested in herself through all of that, through the academics, through the sports, through the, leadership clubs, the wellness, the healthy living, all of those things that we have to offer.
And what people don't understand if they've never been into volunteerism, try it. If you've never volunteered, just try it. Go try it. Go something small. Your kid's PTA. PTA is a great place to start.
Yeah.
Because most people's kids go to school, go to public school, and that's a really good place to start. But volunteer a little bit because you'll learn as you start volunteering and putting yourself into it and giving a little bit of yourself, you receive more in here
Yes.
than what you're giving.
That's right.
And it's really a great way to live your life.
Yeah.
To volunteer. So, and I'm really glad that you guys are teaching kids that.
Well, and you have, as an organization though, just your school has a very specific thing. It's mandated. It's whatever. But then you take that kind of the diversity, because you got everybody, all the kids have to go.
Yeah.
And you move it into a more volunteer and having fun, and the focus is not about learning. You not just passively learn, but you have fun, and it's a different focus. And the fact that you have an organization that can coordinate that is immense. That, I think, is the cool thing about it. I'm learning more, because I didn't do boys and girls clubs, or boys clubs, I guess, back when I was growing up.
He did the girls club back in the day.
but Fort Worth, is where I grew up.
Okay.
And my mom was single, and I'd go. My mom and dad were divorced. That's all I remember. I was, but I would go see my dad. But I was a latchkey kid. And I think that's a lot of kids are that way. And like you pointed out, even when you may have both parents at home, if they're both working, and so you're still a latchkey kid. So I think it's important. I think what you guys do is awesome, and the fact that just you can touch so many kids' lives, and it can be that kid. We hear about all the successes in terms of, I don't know the background of the kids that have made those
Terry's
things
gonna
you talk
hit me one
about.
day in the face, I
Yeah,
guarantee you.
yeah. But anyway, what about so any success, if you call them a success, they're all success stories, but somebody may have come from not so good a background have you learned of any, you've just been here a short time, but what about any of those kinds of situations now?
Kids, you would say statistically.
Yes.
You would say is, it's just, life is what it is. Statistically, if you have one parent more than two, you're statistically more likely to have this. If you live below the poverty line, you're statistically more. I mean, you have markers. The beautiful thing about this country is you can come from
right.
You could have statistically you ain't got a chance to rise up to nothing.
Right.
So
that's
Well, the demographics of the kids that come to our clubs are very similar to the WFISD numbers.
Right.
So about 70% or more at or below the poverty line. So by and large, the members that we serve, already economically have the deck stacked against
exactly,
them. Their families are struggling.
Yeah.
One of the stats that I saw at the Texas Summit really moved me because, and it sounds simple, it's actually profound. So 9 out of 10 parents who have access to after-school programs for their school-age kids say they feel less stressed. Now,
really?
Those of us who are parents know how stressful life is, and then you add the crazy kids on top of it, right? I feel it every day. But
parenting can be stressful.
Why is this stress reduction so critical? Well, deeper studies on child development and family systems show that when the parents' stress is reduced, everything else goes a little more smoothly, right? Sure. You have better outcomes in the home, in the families. Mm-hmm. Parents are able to focus and juggle on what they're trying to do to keep their kids safe and fed and clothed and all of those things. You reduce the risk of violence in the home, all of those outcomes that we all want to avoid for our community. Wow. So it's so simple. And I remind my staff of this. Sometimes when they have a kid who's struggling with their behavior, it takes a little more time to mentor, doesn't quite know what they like yet. I hate art. I hate gym. I hate blah, blah, blah. It's like, look, just having her here and taking that stress from the parents. We're partnering with the parents, but this is a big deal. Mm-hmm. This is where it starts.
You're right. It's very profound.
It starts that positive cycle because we know all of our lives we're either going in the right direction or the wrong direction. There's always chance for redemption, but, it starts with, I know I can count them. And back to that stress. Why are the parents' stress reduced? Because they know their kids are safe.
Right.
I mean, if we really told parents just how excellent our programs are, our outcomes, you asked about kids, we got 50 scholarships per year. So we got kids going to MSU, further afield. We've got kids experiencing, life out in Colorado. We get invited to this fully paid, ranch every year. Their horizons are widening. We've I hear we have graduates who have gone on to, play professional sports, and
Absolutely.
then we have a very active alumni club. So I'm meeting folks, men and women, every day, who grew up in the single parent, whose families struggled, who weren't sure what they want to do with their lives. They're productive citizens giving back now to the kids who are coming up through the clubs. So parents who are raising good kids here in town, but. It's just amazing how that beginning, that safe place, something you can count on, right? You don't know if you're going to lose that job or, if your car is going to break down. But gosh, the kid gets a ride from school. They're at the Boys and Girls Club. We're open till 8 on school nights.
Wow.
Right? And majority of our kids get picked up by 6:30,
Well,
7.
and by the way,
but some need that until 8.
Right.
Absolutely, daycare. I can attest to this. I was a single parent for 9 years, and at the time my business, we closed at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, daycare stopped at
Yeah.
5:30, and if you were there 1 minute late, it was like $15 a minute or something silly like that.
You get penalized.
And so I had to juggle. So yeah, that would have been a great solution there.
Wow.
So.
Well,
we need to
as we
kinda
wrap up,
here.
what else? Any other particular last thing you want to
I was
leave
going
us
to say,
with?
kind of make a pitch. We're wrapping up here. So tell us a little about where people go. What are you asking people to do to get involved?
Yeah. So we talked about giving. Giving at any amount really gives a difference, especially if you commit to be a
Open up
monthly
your
giver.
wallet. There you go.
$10 a month, $30 a month. We can all do something.
Yes.
That's easy to give on our website, bgcwf.org. We talked about volunteering a little bit. We're seeking volunteers at all 5 clubs, which means there is a Boys and Girls Club close to everybody's workplace,
Yes.
everybody's home, an hour a week. It's inspiring, guys. I mean, really, really great.
Honestly, there's nothing I've found in all the volunteerism I've done, there's nothing more than working with a kid, especially one-on-one. When you have a kid who's struggling or something like that, and you can work with that kid one-on-one, yeah it is.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, if you're a creep, don't show up.
Yeah.
They're going to watch out for you.
We background check
That-
all of
there
our
you go.
volunteers.
Yeah, you should, yeah.
They're properly trained.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, but then for the parents watching, for the grandparents, guardians watching, this is the best kept secret. in
There
town.
is a resource for you.
I hope it won't be a secret for much longer.
There's some help. There's some help. If you're stressed and you don't know where to turn, and this is about the lowest cost stress reliever you can have.
With incredible impact.
Exactly.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I'm talking about just if you're just looking at it, where am I going to put my kid?
Yeah.
Everybody can come up with $30
Yeah.
one time a year.
For the whole year. And
Right.
summer is coming up.
Right.
We have an amazing summer program at all 5 clubs, but then one day a week, we take our fleet and we take kids from clubs out to Lake Kickapoo at our Camp Grand Ball. This is a traditional summer camp. We've got a gorgeous Olympic-sized swimming pool. We've got all kinds of sports, room to play right on the river. It's 40 minutes drive and a world away. Traditional summer camp. We remember, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But kids these days don't get this kind of opportunity.
No.
So that's all summer long. We start right after Memorial Day. So time to sign up is now.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Well, cool. Well, all right.
Where do people go to sign up?
Yeah.
Online, bgcwf.org, or come into any of our
I was
clubs.
going to say, they can go to the club.
Oh, yes.
If you're not sure, go visit.
That's
Right? They'll be happy to walk you around and have a conversation with you and show you what they're doing and explain all that.
We want to make it easy for parents.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I guess as we wrap it up, we'll remind you we're here every Friday morning, 7:30, live streaming the whole bit. But
And
next
Jim Johnson.
Yep. Next
Yeah.
week we have
County
Jim,
Judge is gonna be with us.
he will be the outgoing.
Yeah.
Right?
He will not be the county judge as of January 1st. of
It'll
next
be
year.
Mark Dora or Rick Hatcher,
Hatcher.
one of those guys, as they finalize.
And Mark
that
is going to
deal.
be. Rick was on us a couple of weeks
Right,
ago.
we got
with us,
Mark,
and
on
Mark
the
is going to be
17th.
in on the 17th. So 2 weeks.
So there you go. All right,
Mark
so
your calendars.
There you go. Like our friend and radio partner Mike Hendren always like to say, is that we will see you down the road.